Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. This week on Sunday Wire, America celebrates its 250 years of independence with fireworks, speeches, and quite frankly, patriotic spectacle. But across the world, millions gather in mourning as funeral processions wind through Iran following the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The contrast is impossible to ignore. One nation celebrating its founding ideals, while another buries a leader amid the wreckage of a region pushed ever closer to the edge. So, on this episode of Sunday Wire, we're asking whether diplomacy itself has become the latest casualty of our modern age. Was the recent MOU/slash ceasefire a genuine off ramp from conflict, or merely an intermission before the next act? What is going to remain of international law when military force arrives before negotiation? And what lessons should America consider as it marks 2.5 centuries of its history? So, from Tehran to Washington, from historical memory to present day power politics, we'll examine the narratives shaping our world and the realities too often left outside the headlines. So this is going to be a great show today. Joining me later in the program for the Overdrive segment, we'll have Ruckus with us and Basil as we break down the week's major developments. And we do have a special video presentation also coming up in a little bit here. I'm Bryan McClain, guest hosting for Patrick Henningsen, and this is your weekly news omnibus. Welcome to the Sunday Wire. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Rumble, X, BitChute, Alternate Current Radio, and of course, 21stCenturyWire.com. So find us on the web at 21st Century Wire and alternatecurrentradio.com. Well, Patrick is in Tehran, Iran for the funeral processions of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We'll go through some headlines and events. I'll play an exclusive report that we have here from Patrick via video from the funeral procession. And after that, we'll take a quick break and we'll bring our friends in for Overdrive. But first, I have to mention the Sunday screening. We've got a great Sunday screening for you this week. Well, it's not so great. It's not going to make you feel great to watch it, but it is an important one. So the Sunday screening, if you're new around here, is our weekly documentary film curated by the editorial team here at 21 Wire. So Fault Lines Investigations, the movie's called Into the Darkness. It's new out this year. Fault Line Investigations, allegations of systemic torture of Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israeli custody. So this, you get a peek into the darkness here with this investigation as it alleges that torture is used systematically against Palestinians held in the Israeli prison system and military detention facilities. It's got firsthand testimony. It's got former detainees recounting beatings, starvations, all the worst things you can imagine, medical neglect, psychological abuse. So highly recommend that you check that out, share it around. I know it's not the most pleasant information to be sharing, but you would be surprised how many people are not hip to what is happening. So, go to 21stCenturyWire.com and you can check it out over there at the website. There you go. Right there is where you'll find it. The Sunday screening up there on our website, 21stcenturywire.com. Now, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei served as Iran's supreme leader from 1989 until his death in February of this year, 2026. Succeeding Ayatollah Ruhollah Khamenei, the founder of the Islamic Republic, he led the country for nearly 37 years, making him one of the region's longest serving leaders. Now, Iran has an elected president, but the supreme leader is the country's highest political and religious figure. That's something that doesn't click for a lot of Americans, especially if all they watch is Fox News and read Truth Social, right? Because all you hear there is, well, nothing like that, right? Um, Even Trump himself seemed to be a little surprised at the mass mourning of the martyred spiritual leader. Um, Spiritual leader also has final say on major state affairs, including the armed forces, foreign policy, and the judiciary. So that's sort of some important context for some of us Westerners, right? A lot of us don't know that because isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that America can attack a country that its citizens really know nothing about? All most Americans understand about Iran, if they only watch mass media cartel material, is well, they just start repeating tropes, right? Oh, the largest state sponsor of terror and this and that, right? But no understanding of how the structure even works there. So, Khamenei was assassinated on February 28th of this year when U.S.-Israeli strikes hit his residential and official compound in central Tehran during the first wave of the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. 86-year-old guy, right? 86, was killed alongside several members of his family, including his daughter, his son-in-law, and a 14-month-old granddaughter. So it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim. There's footage of the granddaughter's coffin going through the procession and this kind of stuff. But the turnout quite big, quite a big turnout. My goodness. Uh, Here's some video right here. Let's take a look at it. The turnout for this is estimated in the tens of millions in total. It's going to go on for a number of days, at least a week, even longer. And I don't think, I don't know. Some are saying it is the largest funeral in history. So imagine the surprise of President Trump, who doesn't read things, who doesn't absorb information in long form, who doesn't inquire beyond the whispers coming in his ear from the various Tolkien-esque worm tongue political Zionists that surround him. Absolutely must be mind-blowing for the octogenarian to try to process that video, to try to process what it means. I thought they hated him. Well, so we have Patrick Henningsen on site. There are a number of journalists on site to include our very own Patrick Henningsen, the host of this show. So we will be getting a video submission from him. But, my question is, what comes next? What comes next for Iran? Indirect talks between Tehran and Washington. Well, they're expected to resume after Khamenei's burial. And Qatar, of course, continuing to act as a key mediator. The latest round of discussions in Doha, however, focused on issues including maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, the release of frozen Iranian funds, but there are no signs of a major breakthrough here, not that I can see at least. So, and what have we seen? Even after the MOU, town in southern Lebanon was completely bombed out. I'm seeing estimates of thousands of people perished and many, probably tens of thousands, now homeless. Now, last I checked, part of Iran's stance was, you want this MOU, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. You want this MOU, the action in Lebanon needs to stop. The military ethnic cleansing in Lebanon and Palestine needs to stop. And I think there is a hefty amount of skepticism among Westerners who are paying attention that the U.S. and Israel are going to stop those actions. So let's bring Patrick Henningsen aboard here with a video presentation from Tehran, Iran, on site. This was recorded just hours ago.
شیوه نیروهای مسلح و این همنوایی و همراهی ما باشه با همه فرماندهان و نیروهای مسلح کشور ایران عزیز به ویژه فرماندهان.
We're here at the Grand Masala. This is one of the official funeral ceremonies. It's been going on all day since 6 in the morning, really, and we're able to get in. And this is where hundreds of thousands of people will be rotating through this site here to pay their respects to the late Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah, Sayyid Ali Khamenei. And behind me, you'll see the coffins of the leader and his family up on the stage. And this is an opportunity for Iranians to get a last glimpse, or to, you could say, the last chance to touch a leader that's been pivotal and central to this society, to the country here for the last 4 decades, pretty much. You could say 37, nearly 38 years. So it is really, I think, monumentous on a national level. If one thinks about other state funerals around the world and how many people would turn out for those, whatever the country may be, in the United States, in Great Britain, China, other countries, this is nothing short of a spectacle that, quite frankly, dwarfs anything. It's hard to find anything equivalent to it right now in the world. Emotions are running high. People are very passionate in their support for their leader. And again, people making pilgrimages really from all over the country. But this procession will continue right through tomorrow, and then Sunday, a bigger ceremony on the streets of Tehran, and then around the country. And this ceremony, this national event, will culminate in the city of Mashhad. That's where the leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is from. It's his hometown of Mashhad. And that's going to be a massive event, as is the ceremony in Qom, the holy city of Qom. So while it's getting busy today in Tehran, things haven't climaxed yet, and it will continue around the country. One estimates that upwards of nearly half the country's population in one way or another is going to participate on some level in this national mourning ceremony. And again, having come at a time when the country is technically still at war with the United States and Israel, means that passions are going to run high. And there's a blackboard that circles the stage where people are coming up with chalk and writing their feelings, writing their prayers, their wishes, their sentiments, positive and also quite a stern rebuke of the United States, of President Trump as well. This is all part of this collective conversation, this collective outpouring of emotion from the country in the Islamic Republic of Iran. So we've just left the Grand Masala. We arrived early, around 4:30, 5 a.m. And morning prayer has just kind of concluded. A lot of people leaving, and a whole another crowd of people will be coming in. So they're sort of cycling out, one egress and then in one entrance. And today, this will be a 24-hour affair. So it will continue then. On Monday, a whole new procession through Tehran and then on to the other major cities in Iran. So this has been an absolutely epic state event, a state funeral for the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, leader of the country for 37 plus years. So you can imagine this is really a nation in mourning, but also a nation as well in defiance. If you look at the slogans on the banners and the flags in red and black saying, "We will rise," and really this is about, it has a lot of different meanings blended in there, woven in there, but it's a very powerful statement politically and in terms of the global ummah as well, and Iran taking a kind of, a leadership role really with respect to the war that's still underway. Technically, they're still at war with the U.S. And Israel. So you have a lot of different dimensions to this, geopolitically, but also religiously, globally in terms of Islam. And then in the region, this is a major shift in the region. You can feel it. So that those slogans of defiance and that we must rise, I think there's also an aspect of, you could say, the global South. You could also say, a type of call for humanity to rise up against injustice and oppression, and all of that is woven into the message that is very, very prominent here for this incredible historic event. And so we'll continue to provide you with images and reactions, as well as news and commentary in the coming days. Absolutely extraordinary. Incredible.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Patrick. My goodness. folks, your support allows things like this to happen. Many of you, uh, support us sometimes during the show. Looky there. Looky there. Sticky Marks 1919. Thank you very much. Sticky Mark says, thanks, Hesher. Caught your Friday boiler room. It was great. My answer to your first question, the BAR, the bar, City of London, not a pub. Love and prayers from Sticky Marks 1919. Thank you, Sticky Marks. Appreciate that. Glad you enjoyed the boiler room this week. But, those of you that support 21stcenturywire.com, Sunday Wire, it means a lot to us, and it truly enables us to do the kind of things that you just saw right there. It is no small task to get Patrick Henningsen to these places in these times. If you're new here, you may have missed Patrick was in Iran just before all of the chaos started happening, before the unprovoked attack on Iran happened. And now he's back covering this crazy story for us. So thank you to those of you who have become members at 21wire.tv, lifetime members at 21stcenturywire.com, super chatters, super stickers, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. And this is a perfect example of where that rubber meets the road. Now, before we go to intermission and into the Overdrive segment, where I'll bring in Basil and Ruckus, I have another piece of footage I want to show. Attendees were heard chanting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel," as well as demanding revenge on those behind Khamenei's assassination. Now, look at this crowd right here. My goodness. Let's see here. Yeah, this one. Absolutely huge. Huge. Now, Donald Trump, how do you feel about some of those comments you made going into this whole venture, right? Oh, the people there don't like him. The people there don't like him. The people hate him. The people fear him. It does not look that way. It does not look that way. So, again, must be a big surprise. Got to be a big surprise for Donnie. And I shudder to think, to imagine a hypothetical where the situation had been reversed and this country lost its leader and the majority of his family and the youngest member of his family all at once. Would our crowds be that big? I know they'd be chanting death to whatever country did it. But would it be that big at this point? I don't know. I really don't know. I kind of doubt it. What do you guys think? Well, tell you what, while we ponder that, we will take a quick break here and we'll come back and we'll bring Ruckus and Basil to the party and we'll do some Overdrive. I'm Bryan McClain, otherwise known as Hesher, and you're watching the Sunday Wire at 21stcenturywire.com and Alternate Current Radio. We'll be right back.
Show complications we'll soon see. Hey, here we are. Heaven come down. Here we are. Heaven come down. Come down.
All right, that is the real anthem right now. You just heard the real anthem. You can find them at the Real Anthem Band on social media and on Bandcamp. And of course, you can find links to where to find all that on the show page. Show page is up at 21stcenturywire.com as well as alternatecurrentradio.com. So get on out there and support our friend and colleague Sean Helton and his bandmates. We're loving what they're doing right now. So thank you, Sean, for and guys in the Real Anthem for letting us use your music here. Links to all that in the descriptions and show pages. Now we're heading into the Overdrive segment of the show here. So I'm very pleased to welcome my colleagues, Basil Valentine and Adam Clark, otherwise known as Ruckus. Hello, Basil. How are you? Welcome to the Sunday Wire.
Hi, Hesher. Great to be with you. Yeah, I'm doing okay.
All right. Great to see
As
you.
well as can be expected is my usual answer, given the fact that, to paraphrase Barry Humphries, I'm approaching 60 from the wrong direction. And of course, you know, you wake up every morning to this sort of science fiction horror film that we live in, you know. But,
it really does feel like the second volume of a 3-volume dystopia book set, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yeah.
That'll definitely put a hitch in your giddy up when you're getting out of bed, won't it, Ruckus? When you get up and you check the feeds and you see entire towns turn to rubble and
Right.
think to yourself, how many people lived there? What would that be like? Oh my God, whose tax dollars paid for that? That's a rough get out of bed, isn't it, Adam?
Yes, thanks for having me. Hi, Basil. So that's where you're going wrong, people. If that's what you're doing, is you're rolling out of bed, and the first thing you're doing is you're doom scrolling. That's no matter what's going on in the world, I guarantee probably close to 100% as I can get without getting sued. That's going to give you a bad day. So don't start your day like that. Maybe get up, yawn, stretch, drink some water or something like that. Take the dog out for a run, get the kids ready for school, whatever you need to do. But don't pick up the phone right away, you know. And it should not also be the last thing that you do before you go to bed, which is what I do. And that's why I look and feel the way I do today. But anyways, Basil, I do have a recommendation for you, maybe because I mean you are approaching that age. A lot of folks out here in America, I don't know how they do it out there in the UK, but when they start to approach this age and they feel the way you do, they start being open to the idea of like all of these THC edibles and gummies and drinks and things like that. So maybe you should just chill out, smoke a joint, listen to some Bob Marley or something like that. And you might feel better. I don't know. Just accept that the world is flat and space is fake and gay, and we're all going to make it.
Sure. I mean, first of all, your little list of extremely admirable things to do before doom scrolling, get the kids ready for school, take the dog for a walk. Well,
Hey, Basil,
no kids.
Can you move your phone back a little? One of us has a phone too close to the computer.
That's right. There are no kids here and no dog. So that means we cut straight to the doom scrolling, I'm afraid. And when it comes to THC, I did a fair bit of that in my youth. It made me terribly paranoid, to be perfectly honest. Likewise, people advocate microdosing mushrooms, all that sort of thing. I prefer just to, have a narcotic-free spiritual journey, shall we say? Let's put it like that.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm just joking, but just in general that, people, you should, when you can, do what you need to do to just kind of relax. You don't need to be focused.
Yeah, no, sure. I agree on that. On that score, I agree. And in general, but the problem with the doom scrolling as soon as you get up is the doom scrolling actually begins before you get up. The doom scrolling begins when you're still in bed.
It never stops, Basil. The doom scroll never sleeps.
Exactly.
They don't call it infinite for no reason. It just keeps going and going and going. That's for sure. So wake up and touch grass, or wake up and smoke grass. I'm not sure which, but do something natural.
Yeah. Well, I've recently rejoined a local swimming pool, so I'm going to be going down there. I'm going to be swimming at least twice a week. It's my preferred exercise.
Yes, that's our preferred exercise too.
The fitter you are, the better you feel. There's no doubt about it. So
yeah, swimming is great. Because it gets you just enough cardio, and it gets you all of your like calisthenics, your stretching, and you're using muscles that you probably wouldn't even think to isolate if you're just trying to, stretch and do that kind of stuff at the gym or on the floor or whatever. So get out there and go for a swim before you doom scroll, folks. We did not do that today, though. We're sitting here not practicing what we preach so that we can bring you our analysis today. So we're going to talk about America.
That's our job, though. So there's a big difference between what we do and what you do. We do this for you, so you don't have to do what we're recommending that you don't do. So
exactly. See if we can take some of those rounds for you and absorb them. So we are going to talk about America turning 250 here, but I want to get some thoughts from you guys about Patrick's video. What's going on this weekend? What kind of questions does it bring to mind for you? So Basil, I know you were backstage watching a lot of that. What are your immediate thoughts knowing what's going on in Tehran this weekend?
Well, I hope it passes off without an attack, first of all. That dreadful jigsaw doll impersonator Laura Loomer described the funeral as a target-rich environment, hoping that there would be strikes on the bombing raids on the mourners.
And she knows that there are Western and American journalists standing there on the location. Our colleague, as one of them, that she's hoping gets glassed out.
Well, anybody who's there, as far as she's concerned, is a legitimate target. I mean, the demonization of Iran and of the Iranian people, is second only to the demonization and dehumanization of the Palestinians, isn't it? It's a terrorist regime, apparently. There's 40,000 people that were killed in protests earlier this year. There's no proof of any of that, of the numbers of people that were killed. Some feminists like to claim that women are all terribly oppressed, and therefore the whole country has to be bombed into submission in order to liberate the women. There's just so much myth-making and dehumanization, as I say, that it's very difficult to know where the truth is. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the current Iranian government, shall we say? Well, I think it would be good to see a more. Well, as soon as you start, the problem is as soon as you start saying liberal or open society or something, then immediately the sort of, the degradations, shall we say, the the flaws in the liberal societies that we live in come to mind, and so you hesitate and think, well, perhaps they're better off as they are. Because
Yeah, you imagine NGO flights just coming in all day long.
that's right, sudden access to to extreme pornography, or the sort of Coca-Cola culture, the lowest common denominator that seems to be the West's export. So Persia, Iran, actually has a tremendously rich history and culture to celebrate. I mean, going all the way back to the great Sufi poets and alchemists, Omar Khayyam's and Ibn Jaber's, and it would be great to see those traditions, revitalized and brought to the fore. I was talking to our colleague Hussein Shafei, known as Hoz, who is out in Iran for a year now. Patrick did a report with him for UK column on Friday, and I was talking to Hoz last week. He was due to come on the program, but unfortunately he had a bout of food poisoning. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I proposed to him the idea of the Anglo-Iranian Friendship Society. And there's no reason why you couldn't have an American-Iranian Friendship Society. The idea being simply that the people of Iran and the people of Britain would get together, correspond, exchange ideas, engage in friendly conversation, shall we say, dialogue, because the people of Britain, like the people of America, have no beef with the people of Iran. Caitlin Johnston did a very good piece, the Australian journalist, just this weekend, saying, 90% of the news is empire managers inventing threats to scare us all as justifications for illegal foreign wars, and to distract us from actually doing anything meaningful about ameliorating our own societies. And Iran is just the latest in a long list. Now, the UK don't take the Iranian threat quite as seriously as the imaginary Iranian threat, I should say, quite as paranoidally as Israel or the United States. But nevertheless, it may well still fall under the remit of this new national threats legislation, which is being rushed through Parliament here in Britain, which basically gives the government the power to deem pretty much any organization or any individual collaborating with a prescribed organization the designation of a national security threat. So it's conceivable, and I sincerely hope not, that Patrick could find himself designated a national security threat on his return to the UK under this new legislation. That's why, it might sound like a fantasy or something, but we need to build alternative structures that undermine and give the lie to these endless straw men that the oligarchy are putting up for the masses to demonize, so they can continue with their illegal wars and depopulation agenda and all the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was saying coming in there about just the structure of the government, they don't teach people in America that at school. They don't teach us anything about Iran. If they do, it's it's simply CIA talking points, probably. Ruckus, what did you think when you saw some of that footage? I mean, just the size of the crowd. I'm trying to imagine what that would be like here if that were to happen here somehow, and I just don't think it would look anything like that.
Well, first of all, I would like to make the point that they hardly teach us much about our own country.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Or science, or health, or religion. Okay, yeah, there's a long list of
Diet,
things they don't teach
balancing
us
your
about.
checkbook, the stuff you need to actually adult.
Turns out, in retrospect, as you get older, looking back at the school system, you're like, was that really school, or was that an indoctrination prison training camp? What was that? Yeah, anyways. So what I was going to ask Basil as a comparison, so we'll go back to him in just a little while, but like what I immediately thought of, and I was like, well, I should do a quick search. And I was like, no, I can see it in my head already. I already know the answer. How many people turned out in force, such as what we're seeing with Iran, when the Queen of England died? You would think that that would be the number one largest funeral celebration procession, what have you, ever in the history of modern times. Just guessing that's the one that should have qualified, right? For what it's worth. But yet, I don't think that's necessarily true. And then, here our leaders like to argue back and forth about how many showed up at the National Mall to celebrate their what do they call it, being elected, or what we call it, being selected. But when they become president for their inauguration and the celebration there, and they compare the pictures, they're like, look, Obama only had 500 people. Trump had 1,366,000. It's like counting jelly beans in the jar on the counter at the local store or whatever, and you win a free meal or something, right? So but when you see the drone footage and the videos and everything of the amount of people that are there, I'm like, is this real? Is this AI? Do this many people exist in one place together? I'm like, this is crazy to me. I'm just blown away. And to contradict that by what most people out here in America who don't even bother to look and they just hear what's being told to them on the news, they're like, oh, yeah, well, I bet there's just a few people there. And the Laura Loomer's like, yeah, they make fine targets. I'm like, dude, you're talking to she's right, I guess, by her line of thinking. They make an excellent target because they're all packed into one place. And that's just disturbing and disgusting. We argue and talk about genocide all the time. And a lot of us, especially growing up, we seem to think that genocide means like a mass, like drop the bomb on them and kill everybody all at once. There went one of my lights. Sorry about that. But it's not. We know it's more of a slow push out and slow kill kind of a thing. But what she's suggesting is the ultimate, hey, we're just going to wipe you out. Like you're a giant anthill and I'm just going to step on you. And now you don't exist anymore. That's disgusting. That's immoral. And that's absolutely shocking, especially when you see the people, how many people she's talking about. Hey, we should just bomb the hell out of those people. And then again, of course, our friend and colleague is there, as well as other Americans and other people from around the world. It's not just the Iranians. It's not just the terrorists. That's right. It's not just the little 14-week-old terrorist babies hanging out at this funeral, Hesher.
Yeah, great point. Basil, what do you think? How is what you're seeing comparing to the procession for the Queen?
Well, most of the attention for the procession for the Queen was on this chap's old friend, Andrew. And the cameras were focused on him a lot. It was one of the last public appearances as a member of the royal family that he made. I mean, yes, there were big crowds there. It was all the usual pomp and ceremony. But I mean, she was 96 and nobody regarded it as a tragedy. Unlike, of course, the untimely death of her former daughter-in-law, the Princess of Wales, Diana. That was a real national outpouring of grief, the like of which the Windsors had not been prepared for at all. Yeah, I didn't pay much attention. That 14-month-old, the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of Khamenei, I noticed had fair hair and blue eyes, So the idea, I mean, the sort of fundamentally, ultimately racist notion is that these people aren't like us, therefore we can bomb them to smithereens. But they're much more like us than we realize. That's my point. I mean, it wouldn't matter if she was dark-skinned and had dark eyes, but I mean, it's just I don't think the average American is aware of the fact that there are blue-eyed people in Palestine or Iran. It shouldn't really make any difference to thinking, but believe it or not, the sort of level of analysis is so bad that it might be worth pointing out.
Right? It's like it shouldn't matter what color the non-combatant women and children's eyes and hair are. Like the fact that we even have to state that is a thing is indicative of where society is right now, how far it has been pushed down into the gutter, and coming from a system that has browbeaten all of its citizens about racism. It's like that is one of the ultimate types of racism that is sort of by omission and by psyop being slipped into, every story on this, basically.
Yes, exactly. And of course, the fact that it's a Shia Muslim being the number one thing. I mean, they had this whole new word enter the lexicon, certainly here in Britain, an Islamist. which is someone who doesn't simply practice the Islamic faith, but also is sort of militant about it and potentially violent. And nobody ever used to talk about Islamists a few years ago, but
ISTs are so popular, aren't they? They're very
yes,
convenient. They're used frequently when labeling things, and I don't quite understand why that is. Maybe I should do a etymological research deep dive into what does it mean when you say isms and ists. Who knows?
Yeah.
Islamist terrorists. See, they go very neatly together. But this power to define is all important, and particularly then when it stretches to law codification. There's a big push to get the IRGC designated a terrorist organization. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know what terror attacks they've carried out. Of course, Hamas, including its political wing, were designated terrorist organizations, and that's caused all sorts of problems for people in the UK who wish to express any kind of support for the organization, because you get arrested immediately. And of course, the ludicrous situation now with Palestine Action being designated a terrorist organization, resulting in the arrests of thousands of peace campaigners. I mean, it needs to be restated at regular intervals just how inverted our societies have become, completely and utterly upended. I mean, people, it sort of disappeared into the mists of time now, but the Convention on Genocide requires states to intervene if there is the likelihood of genocide taking place. And Britain's been doing, and America, of course, has been doing the polar opposite. Has been aiding, abetting, arming, financing, and providing diplomatic cover for genocide. And those who do try and stop it in its tracks, namely Palestine Action, prosecuted as terrorists. I mean, this is, was so far off any kind of moral, what we would understand to be basic ethical and moral framework of how we're supposed to think and act in what is the third decade of the 21st century. The idea that we're on some sort of, mankind is on an inexorable path towards progress and enlightenment is obvious nonsense when evil is allowed to hold sway in this way. It's just, I'm not the only one. A lot of people wake up every morning just sort of bewildered by the national and international situation we find ourselves in.
What you just said about is evil. I think that's the distinction here, and that's a hard one to define, because you have to have some sort of concept of what good or evil is, a foundation built on morals, and that usually stems from some sort of religious belief. And a lot of the world leaders and scientists and the technocrats, when you look into what they truly believe, they're full blown. They believe in the theory of evolution and the strongest beating and the survival of the fittest and all that garbage, and the transhumanism and all that stuff. So we're just useless eaters to them, because they don't have a definition of good or evil. But it reminds me, as a believer, what the Bible has warned us about calling things that are dark light, and calling things that are light dark, calling things that are sweet sour, and vice versa. There's quite a number of famous lines to that effect there, and that's what I think is what was really going on. And for the people who are making the prescriptions of XYZ, so and so, you're a terrorist, you're an evil person, you're bad. Well, that's the biggest amount of projection or something I've ever seen in my life, because these groups are not performing terrorist acts, but the people who are labeling them sure are. So it seems like a great big distraction, muddy the waters, change what terror really means, when terror really means what Israel and the West has been doing in certain times throughout recent history. Yeah, but then they say, no, you're a terrorist. And I'm just like, dude, it's a little obvious what you're doing. And who falls for that? Well, that's on purpose, because only the lowest, basest, dodo is going to fall for that. And as long as enough of those dodos, and there's plenty of them out there, keep towing that line there, then, nothing's going to change, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd like to quote, if I can, and apologies for not looking straight at the camera. Galit Distel Atbarian is a member of the Knesset for the Likud party, for Netanyahu's party, and former Minister of Information. This is what she said at the start of the genocide: erase Gaza from the face of the earth. Let the Gazan monsters die, and let them die badly. Gaza should be wiped off the map, and fire and brimstone on the heads of the Nazis in Judea and Samaria. That's the West Bank. Jewish wrath to shake the earth around the world. We need a cruel, vengeful IDF here. Anything less is immoral. Now, I mean,
anything less than cruelty is immoral. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's right. Now, any sort of standard theological analysis of that from a Christian point of view would describe those words as, fundamentally antichrist, as satanic, because it's an explicit rejection of Christ's message of love, forgiveness, and compassion. Couldn't be more explicit. It's an open call. They're using indeed demonic metaphors, fire and brimstone on the heads of people. She says they're in the West Bank, who had nothing whatsoever to do with October the 7th, even if we were to, discount that on her terms. So, where do Christian Zionists go with that? Well, there's this tremendous cognitive dissonance going on. There's the fact that statement was not widely publicized in the West, for example. You have to dig around, but she's not alone in saying that. I mean, that sentiment is echoed not just by Israeli ministers, but by the general public as well. There's another famous clip of a commentator on Israeli television saying, "I can't sleep at night unless I see homes being destroyed." I mean, so, but there's also this thing that people have so much invested in one side or another that they just simply refuse to take on any information at all that goes against the narrative that they've bought into. So, Palestinians are subhuman monsters, and it doesn't matter what this woman says. I'm a Christian Zionist. They're Muslims bad. We need go no further, as it were. The fact that somebody that's supposed to be their ally is coming out with words that could have been written by the Antichrist is neither here nor there. So, that's a sort of real problem, because the whole legacy of the Enlightenment is the marketplace of ideas, the free flow of information, whereby people are willing to change their views about situations in the light of education, experience, information, reflection, meditation, prayer, whatever you like, following, access to information that they didn't have previously. But that seems to have gone out of the way. We've got sort of hardened, sclerotic tribal loyalties these days, which, in spite of 3 years of genocide, remain pretty much where they were. I mean, of course, there are shifting sands, notably in the Democratic Party in the United States. And indeed, this week there was talk of the third party, the MTG Tucker Carlson party, being set up. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there is an earthquake in the Democrats. Watching the likes of Sean Hannity get so hysterical because these communists, I mean, that's the latest bogeyman, isn't it? Communists are coming for America. Communism doesn't exist in the United States in any meaningful way, shape, or form at all. I don't even know if it's legal.
Yeah, Donald Trump in his speech yesterday mentioned that himself. So yeah, clearly trying to distract the Americans with the tiny Chapukin monkey that's cute, while there's a 400-pound gorilla on the other side of the room over there committing ethnic cleansing. It's crazy. And what you said there, Basil, about people with the right moral compass and the right information being able to adjust their worldview, change their mind. I would
Yes.
say that, here on the 250th anniversary of America, that is happening in this country to an extent. I saw hardly anybody out celebrating 4th of July. I mean, I'm not saying no one was, but as Texas goes, it has not been this year the way it was in previous years. Sure, we had a lot of fireworks last night. Both Ruckuses and my dogs were very upset. Uh, but it's just not the same vibe as before. And the thing is, I think about the tenets of the founding of this country and I think about representation, right? And if the majority of Americans are not feeling very patriotic on Independence Day, which is just, my subjective assessment, it might be because of this. It might be because they feel like their country has no morals and that it has lied to them about sort of the Christian um, uh, morals that that it's built on. I mean, it's so you would think if enough Americans were feeling that way, enough of them would be writing their Congress people, enough of them would be making sure that their representatives say, no, we're not doing this. You're not going to use my tax dollars to go kill non-combatant women and children and tell me that an entire country, an entire race, or an entire very nuanced religion with many different aspects to it is evil. Like Ruckus said, that in and of itself is the evil. That is the opposite. So if we really are a representative country, and if the country is not down with what's going on, uh, are we really independent? I guess that would be my question. I'll let you answer, Baz.
Well, that 250th celebration really was a damp squib, wasn't it? They had Fox News there covering that. All the states were the state fair, wasn't it? I couldn't work out what GU stood for. It's Guam, of course. And there was hardly anybody there. I mean, I appreciate it was about 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade, but the thing was a total fiasco from what I could tell. And the big parade was cancelled because it was too hot, compared to 1976, believe it or not. I can remember it. And, me, it all looked rather sort of jingoistic, but there's much, much greater sense of national unity and pride in 1976. I mean, admittedly, it was 200 years, a more significant milestone than 250, but not really, It struck me, as you said, not many people out celebrating in Texas. The whole thing passed off like a damp firework, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did seem that way. So okay, let me ask you this. Do you think the deterrence has been restored or shattered at this point, as far as potential continuing strikes on the country?
Well, it's very difficult to say. Early last week, reports went round that Vance had been talking from behind his hand like that, and actually there was a build-up of 600,000 American troops in Iraq preparing to invade, and that the peace talks had purely been about stalling for time so that preparations could be made for a ground invasion of Iran. Did you see that, Hesher?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, wait, what? Excuse me?
I know.
I remember back when GWOT kicked off and we sent troops to Iran, Iraq, it was like nobody was surprised. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, oh, okay. Same with like Desert Storm era. It was like there was this rush of narratives and media and clips, and then it was like, okay, they're going. But now it's like just another click on your doom scroll. It's like, oh, they're sending how many troops to where? What?
Exactly. Just another click on your doom scroll. Events that would have been of enormous magnitude 25 or 30 years ago, including the ethnic cleansing of southern Lebanon and the destruction of all the villages there. Now it's another 160 people killed in airstrikes. Do you know what I mean? Things that would have been, amplified to a much greater degree. It seems that human life was much more valued in the last quarter of the 20th century than it is now. Put it that way. I mean, globally, I think that's probably fair comment, isn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I would agree with that 100%. And it's not just me and my subjective opinion here. Even Reddit/Houston said, "Did anybody notice how bare fireworks stands were yesterday, even compared to New Year's, which was also pretty tame compared to even the year before?" So even folks are noticing this all over the place in Houston, all over.
Yes, exactly. So, but back to your question, the problem is that with this regime in Washington, and obviously particularly Tel Aviv, where they really are jumping up and down at the thought of peace, they can't stand the idea of peace. Just early last week, Netanyahu made a speech saying the wars will never end. They will never end. And Israel Katz, the foreign minister, said, we're going to stay in Lebanon. We're not going to give up an inch. Going to steal that territory. Absolutely brazen about it. So they're not going to stop plotting, scheming, goading, blackmailing, bribing, doing all the things that they usually do to try and get the United States to restart a war on Iran, or alternatively, Mossad mixing with the Kurds again to try and get them to rebel, targeted assassinations, anything and everything is possible. Last week, of course, it came out that the Israelis were planning on assassinating the Iranian negotiators during the peace talks. That was swiftly denied, but I mean, the kind of denial isn't worth any hot air, So we just don't know is the answer. The Hoz was saying in Tehran that the reason why the United States is now willing to stop the madness is because US oil reserves are so low that they're going to run out within a week or two unless the Straits of Hormuz are open. And that would see gas prices doubling in the United States. And then you've got obviously not just major economic problems, but a possibility of civil unrest. I mean, that's a catastrophe. So the Straits of Hormuz have to be open for the passage of oil, period. And so therefore, that's the only reason why they've climbed down and they're willing to do a deal. I mean, Vance himself, well, he's now derided as an anti-Semite. Anybody who wants peace is an anti-Semite, of course. He is close to Tucker Carlson, and we know where Tucker stands on all these days. So whether or not there's a back channel going on there and they're talking and Tucker's trying to talk some sense into him, I don't know. We don't know what role Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are still playing in all these talks. At the moment, apparently, then there are indirect talks all through the Omani, Qatari, Pakistani intermediaries and all the rest of it. And we hope that there's no more bombing. I mean, it's at the moment there's sort of tit for tat skirmishes, aren't there? A bit like a playground bully picking on somebody in the schoolyard, give a couple of punches and run away, and then catch up with you and stick his compass needle in your backside in the queue for lunch and run away. And do you know what I mean? It's a bit like that at the moment, isn't it? But supposedly they're supposed to be acting like grown-ups.
Yeah, well, I'm just waiting, like any good middle school teacher or recess monitor. I'm just waiting for the bully to lose control.
Yeah, for the big flare up. Yeah.
Yeah, and if God forbid, if strikes happen during these funeral processions, that is just going to make things worse. The international community, although even the corrupt UN aspects of it are not pleased with what's going on. We've got delegates from Russia, China, so many countries, number of European countries there, also showing their respects. So that makes quite a statement, I would say. Um, so Ruckus, what do you think, man? I'm curious because like what is gonna happen next? Like, did Iran survive the first round strategically, do you think, Ruckus? Because that's kind of how it's looking to me. Like, yeah, they of course they've survived, and maybe come out in a better strategic position. What do you think?
I think, remind me real quick, when did the conflict between Ukraine and Russia start?
Oh
How long ago?
gosh. Was that 2022? March
That's right.
2022?
4 years now. Yeah.
And when
Been
was
going on
October
longer than the First
7th?
World War.
How long has that stuff been going on with the Gaza genocide?
Almost 3 years?
Yeah.
And how many times throughout both of those that I just brought up have we been exactly where we are right now?
Many? I've lost count.
So I'm going to just go ahead and put myself in the skeptical column that this is going to end anytime soon, and then it's going to turn into exactly like this other thing, and it's just going to be a long, drawn out thing. And it's just like I saw patterns of that already. They were like they would do the big thing in the back and forth, and Trump would threaten with the post, and then people do the inside trading, and then whatever, and then full reset next week. But then after doing that for a while, they took a pause. They're like, oh, we're really making some headway here. And they announced, 60 days is when the first one was, and it didn't last very long. But then the same thing with the second time when they're like, oh, we're finally here. We're at the 60 days thing. And I think that's where we're at now, right? We're like in this 60-day period or whatever. And then nothing's going to change. And unless, the Israel steps in and says, you know what, we're just doing the Samson thing. We're going to make Laura Loomer very happy, and whatever. Yeah. I don't see it changing. This forever war, this model, whatever this thing is, serves them so well. Otherwise, would they keep doing it? Same thing with the propaganda. Why do they keep using such stupid kindergarten level propaganda? Because it works. It keeps working. Otherwise, they would change what they're doing. You know what I mean? So maybe we got to get back on the streets again and start shaking people and being like, yo, turn your TV off. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Yeah. So the American people, I think, by and large, have no support for what's going on. And, back to what we were saying earlier about representation, a couple of things that people realize, I hope, and I'm sure this is why this country doesn't support it, among the citizens, is first off, a major power can just withdraw, right? This isn't new. We've seen this many times in war in history. You can just withdraw. All right. And the second thing that we've learned over the many, many years of being a warring civilization of human beings is that diplomacy can actually work and compromise is possible. That's the kind of lessons I think that people are learning, or, as they evolve their worldview on geopolitical conflict, they think about this, it's like, well, wait a minute. And the other thing is this idea of tolerance for death, destruction, loss, and demonization. Like the that tolerance can determine the outcome of a war. If Western people will tolerate that and not understand these couple simple lessons that I just outlined here, just for humanity, for humanity's sake, for where we all hope it's going. What is this? Is this still a representative republic? Because it sure doesn't feel like one to me.
Well, diplomacy has been redefined in the last 5 years as appeasement, hasn't it? Compromise is capitulation. There's endless language is always about being tough. We've got to be tough on Putin. We've got to be tough on the Ayatollah, as if the avoidance of war, the avoidance of mass killing of unarmed combats, mayhem and destruction, somehow weak. So that's why I'm so pleased to see what's been happening in New York and then in Colorado with the wins for the DSA candidates, because they are projecting a completely different vision. They're taking the game away from that whole lexicon, really, and saying we need to focus on what's going on here in the United States. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, are now the America First people.
It is. It's a glorious irony. Glorious irony, actually.
So, but in the international arena, I mean, there's a very good article in Foreign Affairs talking about the death of international law in the last few years, really, obviously with the Gaza genocide more than anything else. And I mean, Karim Khan now looks set to be the chief prosecutor. He looks set to be ousted. I don't know if you saw that, because they've changed the rules for the, evidence requirement to get rid of him. Absolutely unbelievable stuff, really. And he also did an interview a couple of weeks ago in which he said he'd been threatened, him and his family had been threatened by the Israelis if he persisted with the prosecution. That didn't get any coverage in Western media. You had to dig around to find that story. I mean, that's gangsterism 101, threatening the judiciary. So, we're in a gangster world, unfortunately, and it seems that people like the DSA are the only ones who are sort of actually standing up for anything that's anything approaching even the sort of social democracy that we had in the 20th century, which is rapidly crumbling otherwise. I mean, here in the UK, of course, it's the Labour government that's leading the charge. Just last week, the independent media organisation, the Canary, was debanked by Lloyds Bank. They don't know why, refuse to tell them. It means they can't pay their staff, causing them all sorts of problems. And at the same time, the UK government is now trying to force YouTube to modify its algorithms to promote mainstream media sources, to promote legacy media, the BBC, chief amongst them. Oh, this is straight up fascism. I've been saying for a long time, people think fascism comes from the so-called far right or something. It doesn't. It comes from this fake center. That's where the real authoritarians are. And the same applies over on your side of the pond as well. It's the like of Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chuck Schumer, and for that matter, the Mitt Romneys of this world that are the fascists in America.
Mitch McConnell, wherever he may be.
Oh, he's dying. Don't cry too much. Don't cry too hard, Hesh. I know how upset you are. Sorry to break it to you, but he's terminally ill, apparently, Mitch McConnell.
Well,
much more of him.
People have tried to break it to me even worse in the doom scroll. They're just telling me he's already gone, and they're not telling us. So I don't know what to think.
They're not done with him yet. They need to squeeze a few more signatures, I think.
Yeah, we got a few more weeks and months to go here in his term. He is retiring this year, but he may retire before his retirement, if you know what I mean.
I can't wait till we're debating on the next Boiler Room. Is that really McConnell, or is that somebody wearing a rubber mask?
That's
Rubber
right.
mask.
Who on earth would want to make themselves up to look like Mitch McConnell? You'd need a big fee, wouldn't you?
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I would be afraid to put that mask
How
on.
on earth would they do that turkey neck?
It'd have to be a really custom mask to
Very,
make the
very
turkey neck.
elaborate prosthetics required for that.
Yeah, exactly. Who's wearing the CIA mask? That is one of the rotating constant questions lately. Hey, if you're watching this stream and you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Just a gentle reminder. So let's see here. What I guess this all begs one final question on this for me, and I'll get you guys' take. What do you think all this means, if anything, new for Syria, for Lebanon, for Iraq, and for Yemen? What do you think, Basil?
I couldn't possibly say. I mean, I think they're trying to change regimes in Iraq, aren't they? Once again, I think it turns out that they're not as friendly to the Americo-Zionist empire as they would have liked. So I think they want to try and topple them. And isn't Syria...
It's already done pretty much, right?
Yeah. They want Jelani to invade Lebanon or something. I mean, just more bizarro stuff, isn't there? The one that's bubbling under really is Israel v. Turkey. That's the interesting one. And Turkish foreign minister said this week, Israel is a burden that humanity can no longer bear. And that's got them jumping up and down, all the usual talking heads. So watch that space, because when Erdogan finally goes, and he will go one day, he might be replaced, assuming there isn't a coup, he might be replaced with somebody a bit more genuine, because the phrase all mouth and trousers could have been invented for Erdogan. It basically means somebody who talks a lot but does absolutely nothing. So that's an interesting one. And then, of course, there's what's happening in South America. They've just installed Fujimori's daughter as the new president. Now, when the results of that election were originally announced a month ago, the left-wing candidate had won. She's apparently very unpopular, but then rather like in 2020, they stopped counting. There was all sorts of, shenanigans and behind the scenes skullduggery going on. And hey presto, a month later, turns out actually the left-wing candidate who was in the lead, he's lost, and you've got the Zionist puppet instead. Bad luck, never mind. And Colombia as well. So together with Milei in Argentina, you've now got Brazil under Lula effectively encircled by Zionist puppets of one sort or another in South America. It looked for a while, a few years ago, that left-wing populist, indigenous movements were pretty much taking over. Oh, no. The CIA have put far too much time and energy into what they call their backyard to allow that to happen. So it's back to the, crackdown, brutal right-wing regimes. Bolivia is an interesting case because Evo Morales is holed up in his compound and protected by thousands of peasants. They want to try and come and arrest him. He claims he's the legal leader of the country. It's sort of like pitchforks at dawn in Bolivia at the moment. Very interesting, potentially violent situation there.
Yeah. Interesting comment from David here. If McConnell passes on, does Thomas Massie take his place? Well, that is the question a lot of people are asking, and it's leading a lot of people to say, well, it probably means he already has passed on, and we can't let the public know so that we can avoid a special election.
Yeah, I mean, Massie would obviously face the same sort of AIPAC carpet bombing that he had in his congressional.
His war chest is pretty much burned out at this point.
Yeah, so, I mean, it would be great, obviously, to see him in the Senate, but I think he'd have his work cut out for him. But the thing about the DSA, which obviously Massie can't draw upon, is they've got this tremendous ground game. They've got lots of young people knocking on doors, going door to door, people who don't watch Fox News or for whom the millions of dollars spent on those TV ads are completely wasted because, they're not taken in by these endless 30-second hit pieces. So Massey's going to need that kind of ground game if he's going to get anywhere.
Well, he will have one thing in common with them. He won't be taking money from IPAC. So I guess
Well,
they
maybe
can.
he'll get involved with MTG and Tucker and the third party, you know. But I mean, no third party has managed to establish itself in the United States in the last 250 years. So it's a hell of an undertaking.
Yeah.
You don't think one might have teeth this time around, Basil? All things.
Well,
Well, you know what? Of course, I was. Let me real quick say I was on air saying the same thing about RFK Jr. and that was a giant fail. So I just point that out right away. But I mean, it does. It really feels different. I mean, we got the wide open. They blew the Overton window straight wide open on the Israel issue. So I was like, this is a little different. Trump literally came and said, you know what? Screw you, MAGA. Screw you, Tucker. Screw this guy. Screw that lady. You know, and I was just like, well, they didn't do that last time, you know, when there was talk of a third party or a potential. So, I mean, maybe that's part of the plan. All I know is like they already have trouble. They're always worried when. See, the Republicans are always mad if they do something that are going to piss off their voters because they're afraid that the Republicans, I don't know why they think this, are going to switch to the other team. They're going to be like, oh, all of a sudden I'm a diehard Republican my whole life, but because I don't like this guy, I'm suddenly going to become a Democrat. No, and then, you know, they lose the votes, but they're more concerned about the independent, the third party candidate stealing votes from both sides. So when you have somebody like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and going around making the rounds and they're talking about this third party, I think that actually worries Trump if everything is above board. And I think he's going to need a bigger vote, as it were. So I don't know what the Republicans hope to do for the midterms. Trump always was saying a little while ago, he was like, oh, if we don't do something, folks, they're going to find some reason to impeach me, implying that they're going to just have to invent some weird thing, pull out of their butts some old law nobody knows, dust it off, and you convict him 25 times for the way he signs his name or something. No, he went ahead and, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do like XYZ, ZYX, ABC. I'm just going to do 25 impeachable things and let them pick which one to get rid of me. And I'm just like, why would you do that? You're shooting yourself in the, I want to say foot, but I should say another word, which I won't say on this program, but you're shooting yourself literally. It's crazy to me. I don't know. Death of America, I think. Sad to see happening around 250th anniversary.
Yeah, it's really sad, you know. One person, we were talking about the lack of fireworks and patriotism this year. One person in that same thread said, my fireworks are so expensive this year, we literally could not afford it. You can thank the 40% tariffs. Find something good that man has done, albeit indirectly. Yeah.
Sure. You found the really good fireworks when the guy selling it at the booth gives you a high 4.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Whoever lit off those fireworks for the big federal display, I hope they still have all their fingers. That was, I never thought I could call fireworks gaudy, you know, unless they were like the explosions of the factories or someone's booth took a Zippo too long. But that was almost gaudy. It was, I don't know, can it be too much when it's fireworks? Like everyone loves fireworks, right? But it just felt like you're trying too hard. You guys are trying way too hard. And people, and you're just, it's almost like a let them eat cake situation, right? It's like, oh, you should celebrate. What, are you not American? And you're sitting there going, well, my tuna sandwich was $25. I mean, the Roman candles are $25. I only had $25, you know? Yay,
Have
America.
you seen the price of sparklers these days? It's insane.
Totally priced out. Americans priced out of their own patriotism, and people wonder why Americans don't support this bogus war. Absolutely amazing.
That's right. Did you see the speaker, Mike Johnson, going through the laundry list of DSA proposals as if these were all terrible things? It was hilarious. One of them being switched to proportional representation and institute a multi-party democracy and, you know, get rid of the two-party system. And he was sort of deriding this with a smirk. I think most Americans would be delighted to see that, because The two-party system has just simply resulted in, as it has in Britain, although arguably now, in spite of the fact we've got a similar first-past-the-post system, we are arguably now in a multi-party system because decades of frustration at the two main parties have meant insurgents like Farage, his Reform Party, and the Greens, and possibly others, are now winning seats in Parliament. Well, the Liberal Democrats have always been there as well. So it's time for a third party in America, but the problem is that it's very easy for the main parties to squeeze a third party out by simply stealing their clothes. You would only need the Republican nominee to say 30 or 40% of the things that Tucker or MTG was saying to sheepdog everybody back into the elephant part, into the GOP. Do you know what I mean? It's really difficult to be distinct enough as a third party because any popular messaging you get, the other parties are so unscrupulous.
Yeah.
If you come up with a popular message as a third party, the others will just go, we'll have that, and we'll have that, and we'll say what you're saying, whether we believe in it or do it, it's irrelevant. We'll say it for now, and that'll squeeze you out.
And then, as Ruckus pointed out, you just run the RFK script. You send them on the podcast circuit. You send them out and do talks. You send them to Freedom Fest. You send them to alternative media, independent media. You make it look like it's the people's voice, and then boom, all of a sudden, it's not going to work, guys. I'm going to go with this party because they're the closest to what I was saying.
And this could all be distraction from the real third party that they would like to install, which is the one I'm most concerned about. And you might think I'm joking, but no, I really think this is where whoever they are, might be wanting us to go. They want to churn over control to the machines, to the algorithms, to the artificial intelligence. Let HAL 9000, let IBM's Watson, perhaps. You don't hear much talk about them. They talk about OpenAI, they talk about Anthropic, they talk about Grok, but what's going on with IBM? Oh yeah, they're still one of the world leaders in that thing. Kind of weird that their mums on all that stuff, but anyway. But yeah, I think that's where they're headed. They want the control to be handled by the machines, and then that's a whole nother can of worms. And that is practically inescapable if we're at that point. Because if they turn over control like that, we're at probably a full-blown Skynet sort of thing, but the full-blown top-down surveillance technocracy that we're all by now, hopefully, familiar with and are praying, hopefully, that never happens. But here we are.
Well, that's right. Well, Peter Thiel's crazy about these independent city-states, isn't he? Sort of smart city-states, self-governing, biometric, 100% surveillance, and ultimately independent of federal or national government. It's pie in the sky, and hopefully it'll never come to pass. But
Well, it's amazing when another thing that's just only slightly publicized. It's there if you're looking for it, but they don't talk about it much. I don't see much mass media discussing it. Is the robotic platforms for carrying weapons? We've referred to these things as dogs a lot, right? Oh, the robot dog. The robot dog kind of has dog is man's best friend, right? So it's it's the robot dog. It's cute. Well, I don't know. I keep track of these so-called robot dogs, and I'm watching them now shoot 40 millimeter grenades without virtually any recoil whatsoever. The targeting systems on these things are insane. We now know that Palantir and other companies are involved in using AI, Claude famously, and others for target designation, stuff like this. So, you really got to think about what it looks like in, let's just spitball, let's say 2030, because it dovetails with Agenda 2030 ever so nicely. Like say 2030 comes around, and because I really think the situation that we are in, I mentioned this on Boiler Room this week, is that we have entered a permanent state of rolling regional warfare under the tenet of the Orwellian tenet of words like terrorism. We've discussed a lot of words tonight that are not being used in their original format. In fact, they're quite inverted. But I think what's really happening is we're in, ever since 9/11. Actually, someone is out there is going, you guys are celebrating your 250th. You've spent 230 of those years in wars. And that's a good point. It's worth thinking about. But now it's permanent. It's permanent, and it's rolling, and it's multiple fronts, and looking at more to open up, like what's going to happen with Taiwan, what's going to happen in South America, Central America, what's going to happen South Korea, North Korea. What does the next map shift look like? Because what we're seeing right now is companies like Alphabet, who owns Google, literally just deleting towns from Google Maps after Israel and bombs it with U.S. bombs. They'll literally just remove the town. It's no longer on the world map overnight, in a matter of a millisecond, with the click of a button. The same way the town disappeared, the same way the people disappeared. And we're supposed to believe this is self-protection? Are you kidding me? So what I'm saying here is, in 2030, I'm imagine a world. Think of it as a movie trailer. Imagine a world. 2030, the dystopia continues. LA is ground zero. Washington, D.C., ground zero. All the major cities full of all kinds of protesters. Send in the dogs. It's going to be that kind of thing. We're no longer going to have the ability. We already don't have the ability in this country, and I would argue in many European countries, to actually protest. You can't even protest online with a meme, reposting a meme in some so-called Western countries, first world countries. Are you kidding me? So, the idea of protest, think about how many protests have a permit these days. Are you kidding me? I need a permit to use my First Amendment? No, that's not the way that works.
Well, there's a long list of those. Odd Man Out shared this on his Facebook just the other day, and I was just shaking my head. In the United States of America, 125 years ago, you did not have to ask permission from the government to collect rainwater, go fishing, own a property, start a business, renovate your home, build a home, use a transportation vehicle, get married, hunt, own a weapon, cut your hair, cut other people's hair, sell a product, protest, there it is, Hesher, protest, grow food on your property, set up a lemonade stand, sell food. You can do virtually nothing without being extorted by government and obtaining their permission first. If you still think you're free, you're deluding yourself. Man, that sucks. Because I was born into, I was born in 1976. I'm what they call out here a bicentennial baby, because a celebration was happening. It wasn't the 250, it was the 200th year. And I learned something. Apparently, the country collectively, the government decided not to do some sort of tacky official celebration and spend the taxpayer dollars and do a bunch of flyovers and things. Instead, they had locally sponsored events that were coordinated across there were 66,000 different things taking place across the country. And it was fantastic. And it looked pretty neat. I'm like, man. But I also was shocked to learn that there were protests taking place. There were people who were not happy with the government. Go figure. This is nothing new, but they were allowed to protest. But I'm not exactly sure whether or not those people had to get a permit to do so, or if they just showed up like a bunch of hippies, did at Woodstock and did their thing. I think it was the latter rather than the former.
Yeah. And there was no geofencing to worry about. There were far less Fed boys and
no robot dogs, no drones,
no robot dogs. Certainly, there was some level of surveillance and psyop at play, but you compare that to now, wow, what a difference.
But I was led to believe that this was a free country, was my point. So I was born into this great swelling of American pride. Yeah, land of the free, home of the brave. And then I have to grow up 50 years later and be this disappointed. Holy moly, it's soul crushing. Sorry.
Yeah, this genocide brought to you by Palantir. Yay, 250.
That's right. I mean, traditionally in Britain, under common law, you could do anything so long as it isn't prohibited by law. I'd be grateful if you could send me that slide, Ruckus, because I'll incorporate it in a future article. Yeah, it's depressing that the number of new laws that are introduced. Some people would say it's a sort of institutional function of government that you've got all these lawmakers running around, and they feel obliged to create new laws all the time because otherwise they don't have any purpose. So that's why you end up with so many laws. And of course, with something like a lemonade stand, it only takes one person to be sick from drinking unauthorized lemonade, and suddenly you've got your reason for regulating people selling lemonades on their front lawn. Well, somebody got ill last year, so that's why we have to bring in licenses, and you have to pay for the license, and so on and so forth. So these
but the clot shots get a free pass. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everything selective. Here's one that I thought was interesting, so, while we kind of move into this America 250 thing here, we've got one civilization burying its dead and reflecting on sacrifice. And then our civilization, ours here in America, celebrates its founding with fireworks and military flyovers. So we turned 250 this year, but what exactly are we celebrating? This was put out on X by the Resonance. Americans in 1775, not allowed to criticize Britain, must pay taxes to Britain, must send soldiers to fight wars for Britain. Now compare that to Americans in 2026. Who are we not allowed to criticize? Israel. Who must we pay taxes to? Israel. Who must we send soldiers to fight wars for? Israel. Maybe that has something to do with, maybe it's not just the fact that I can't afford the Roman candles after my tuna sandwich. Maybe it's something more like that has people at their core not feeling like expressing patriotism this year. What do you think?
Just curious, how much did Britain play as far as a role is concerned in the creation of the nation state of Israel? Was it a small one?
No, a very large one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Yeah.
No
I'm
offense.
afraid so.
Yeah.
I'm afraid so.
Isn't that?
So what has changed? I mean, they just changed the flag. I mean, they're like, oh, we're just going to do it via proxy over here now. And I mean, then of course, America is technically an offshoot of Britain, but obviously, allegedly different. We're the great experiment, and it looks like we're failing these days.
But remember, America wouldn't exist without Israel. Mike Huckabee said so only this week.
Well,
Simply wouldn't exist.
America might not exist without Russia also, but do they ever say that? Do we get told that, do we learn in history that, Russian vessels parked in New York, when the war kicked off? No? Really? Interesting. Because in 1778, Russia had already began looking for ways to protect its merchant shipping. So, with merchant line, they were trying to help out. I could come up with 5 or 6 different ways that they did in, the first 100 years of this country or so. And we don't ever hear about that.
I have not studied the American Civil War or independence period at all, but am I right in saying that in the early years, both pre and post-revolution, France was the biggest ally of the American revolutionaries?
I believe so.
Benjamin Franklin, allegedly, this is one of the reasons they leveraged his. He was well liked out there because he was in all those weird sex cult secret societies. He was like in every single one of them. But yeah, he was rubbing elbows, and hopefully that's all he was rubbing with some of the aristocrats out there and power players and brokers. And yes, he managed to wrangle a vast amount of support from France. So I mean, was it, if I'm not mistaken, the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
Indeed. Yeah.
Hee hee ho ho ho, right?
And in the Civil War, much like now, it's funny because they try to tell us it's just all about one thing. It's all about one thing, but really, it's as nuanced as it was now. Britain openly sympathized with the Confederacy, and the reasons were not ideological at all. British textile mills depended on cotton from the slaveholding South, while many in London were viewing the United States as preferable to, like a divided United States is preferable to them at the time than, the emergence of a stronger rival, that is well held together. And in the summer of 1863, Alexander II made a move. And rather than keeping his fleets bottled up in European waters, he dispatched 2 Russian naval squadrons across the Atlantic and Pacific. Rear Admiral Lesovsky sailed for New York, while Rear Admiral Popov headed to San Francisco. Officially, the deployment was presented as a training cruise. In reality, it carried a far more strategic message. So, these kind of geopolitics have been in play the whole time. And for, BB, okay, if I may, BB and Ted Cruz just yesterday put out a series of videos, 2 videos that are sort of, you can tell that dovetail on each other. And they're both trying to make the point that America wouldn't be here without Israel. And the best they could come up with was a prisoner rescue mission from 50 years ago, where BB says that his brother perished in the operation. But Ted Cruz, my own senator right here in Texas, on American Independence Day is talking about the glory of the IDF 50 years ago. Yet another reason why Americans are face palming their way through the 250th Independence Day. Unbelievable. I mean, I wanted to retch. I watched Ted Cruz's first. I was like, oh, let's see what Teddy has to say for the Americans. And I was like, why are you talking about the IDF, dude? And then BB's video hits my doom scroll. I'm like, oh, that's why this video goes with that one. It's insane.
You know how, like, invariably there's always that instance, obviously there's a certain degree of truth to this, but there's the extreme lefties that will come out and be like, this America was founded on slavery and genocide, speaking of the United States of America and all the terrible things that are in our past, which, every country's got one, right? And there were people like Ted Cruz and whatnot would be, for shame, how dare you do something like that? This is all supposed to be about us and our country and America and our freedoms and all. And they're doing the exact same thing in a way, except this is their version of it, right? Oh, don't forget, none of this would happen if it wasn't for these guys, our best friends. We're going to celebrate these guys. Yeah, sure, we got the American thing going on, and yeah, 250, but wow, look at these guys. Aren't they fantastic? We love them. It's shit. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Stop. Go shoot some fireworks. Don't blow your fingers off, but shoot some fireworks, have a barbecue, smoke a joint, Ted.
I think back to my 4th of July celebrations growing up, and it's like, this is so insanely lame and different from what I grew up with. It was like, when I was growing up, yeah, most young people did not really care that much about power politics. Our parents may or may not have cared a little bit, but it certainly didn't stop them from taking us to celebrate the Independence Day. It was just, it was for everybody. It was literally a family affair. And now it's like, well, which celebration are you going to, and which mindset, which identity politic is it tied to? That's not what I grew up with. That's not something I'm interested in. That to me feels like you're taking a piece of, a foundational piece of what it means to be an American and crapping
but
on
perhaps it. Sure, but perhaps this lack of enthusiasm for 250 was inevitable. 1776 was very colorful and everybody got very excited, but it was ultimately jingoistic and rather simplistic with it, wasn't it? People weren't aware of what was going on in the world to the extent that they are now. And, we've got the internet to thank for that to some extent. Of course, also America's place in the world and Israel's role in controlling America has become so much worse over the last 50 years, since 9/11, the start of the forever wars and all the rest of it, up to now and including this genocide has sucked all the enthusiasm out of patriotism. Quite understandable. But the seeds for it were there in 1776. It's just that they were glossed over to some extent, by this sort of technicolor spectacular, which everybody felt they could participate in.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, I think that in general, people had more faith in their institutions at that time when we were growing up. So they trusted that their news a little bit more to give them fairer, more accurate reporting. They didn't have to go do all of the vetting and all that stuff, right? And there was plenty of it available.
This is
right?
how Japan is celebrating to life. This is how Japan is celebrating to life.
Somebody's got an embedded video running.
It was probably Hesher. Okay. But so like what you were saying there, Hesher, is like, I think that the people, the voters were more informed, but they were quiet. They were silent voters. They were observing what was happening and they were like, noted, I'm going to keep track of this. And it would change their vote when they went to go vote. But very rarely would they go make a stink about it. Maybe occasionally they might write a strongly worded letter to their editor of their local paper or something like that, or perhaps actually write their representative or give them a call about an important issue. But it wasn't like it is now where they're arguing and bickering back and forth nonstop 24 hours a day on social media. But the things that these people were doing, and the people knew it, the politicians or whatever, the party knew that they're watching what we're doing. We can't mess up because it's going to cost us in the elections. And they pretend like that's really happening now, but the game is so freaking rigged by now. I'm like, But in general, what I'm saying is that we were dealing with a generally more informed citizenry as far as voting issues and matters are concerned, because they know the things that mattered, what affected them, what hit their pocketbook, how much the food cost, whether or not, a hot issue like over religion or abortion type of things. You know what I mean? So, or war,
I do.
War is another big one.
It's worth remembering 1976, sorry, only 13 years after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, of course, the vast majority of the people who elected Kennedy still alive, still voting 13 years later. And it would be very interesting to see the figures as to what proportion of the American population in 1976 thought that Oswald killed him and that Oswald acted alone versus today. So I think the number of people that think Oswald did it and what's more that he acted alone will have fallen dramatically. So although there was greater trust in institutions and in news media in 1976 than there is today, they weren't necessarily any better informed, just being better hoodwinked.
The hoodwinking technology has improved greatly.
Point taken.
Yeah, definitely. Joe Mama NK9XK, $10 super sticker. Thank you, Joe Mama. Joe Mama says the bicentennial in 76 suffered from Vietnam War hangover, Watergate, unemployment, and recession.
That's
Great
right.
show, and thanks, guys. Thank you.
That
Thank
is
you so
true.
much.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very true.
But nevertheless, it was the beginning of the Carter presidency, wasn't it? And there was some optimism that year as well. There were hearings in the House, weren't there, about COINTELPRO and things like that. There was a brief spring, wasn't there? Yeah. In the late 70s, as I recall.
And this week in the House, there were hearings on MK Ultra, which I thought was complete kabuki theater. I know that excited a lot of people who were, hip on the Chaos book and all that, but my goodness, I mean, where are we if we think this government is going to investigate itself? Please, someone answer me that. Asking for a friend. And by the way, even if we're going to pretend like this government is going to investigate itself, is it going to do anything about it? Heck no. Heck no, they're not. And furthermore, if you're going to have a hearing on Capitol Hill about mind control, oh my gosh, you should not have senators who are just reading a brief, the Cliff's Notes on a new book about it. My goodness, the amount of information that is available to citizens about the MK Ultra program is insane. And there's not a whole lot of records left, but if you watched that and you want to know more about MK Ultra, I highly recommend The Minds of Men by Truthstream Media. It's like 3 hours and 40 minutes of personal stories, interviews, history on the program, what initially was found that led to the public knowledge of the program. And the thing that really bothered me, I did not watch the entire hearing, but I watched all the supercuts and the clips and everything. The thing that really bothered me was they completely left out the international connections, the Ford Foundation, all these different foundations that are still around to this day, completely omitted from the discussion. Modern techniques of mind control, which, in my book, it's a thick book, includes media psyops, social media psyops, feedback loops, cybernetic feedback loops, which is gone over in great detail in The Minds of Men. It's insulting to people who have really done the research on MK Ultra to have this flashy hearing with basically nobody there. It's a tiny room and nothing will come of it. And we're talking about the death of Martin Luther King, the death of John Lennon, the death of JFK. Charlie Kirk was brought up. Butler, Pennsylvania was brought up, both of which were almost immediately dismissed. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, we'll focus on stuff that happened many decades ago so that we can just sort of wash our hands of this. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, all I would say is
winning. We got the Epstein files, we got the Fort Knox gold audit, we got the UFO files. So I'm too busy with all of that. But once I'm done getting through all of that wonderful information, I'll dig right into the MK Ultra. Didn't mean to step on you, Basil.
No, not at all. Just that what I will say is, 50 years ago, you had to find out anything about MK Ultra. You had to go into the deepest recess of the esoteric or occult bookshop and look right down in the bottom corner in the conspiracy section, and there'd be something by Jim Keith or something, and you'd look at it. My God, what's this? And now it's there are hearings on Capitol Hill. So, yeah, I take your point. Nothing substantive. Don't expect anything meaningful to come of it. But at least it's now a subject for discussion, and you could have a discussion on, programs like this or mainstream platforms and say the things you're saying. Well, if you were allowed to, Hesher, but theoretically, the door is open to a wider discussion of these things because, as you say, you've got media psyops, social media psyops. I did see somebody referring to mind control by radio waves and via your computer. But for my money, the Australian experiencer, George Cavasilis, sums it up best when he says, everybody on the planet is a mind control slave. Because at the end, it just degrees the matter of the intensity. Of course, your Mark David Chapman's, the guy who shot John Lennon, he may well have been the recipient of very intense, unpleasant procedures, shall we say, which led him to believe that he needed to shoot the founder and leading light of the Beatles. There's a very good book by Fenton Bresler, the journalist, The Assassination of John Lennon. It's out in paperback. If you can find a copy, I highly recommend it. But yeah, we are all mind and controlled slaves to some extent because our whole worldview is conditioned by all the information we've received about the world around us and about ourselves as well. And more people are starting to say that as well in sort of sometimes in two Bob self-development videos on YouTube. The key to life is to unlearn everything you've learned, and live as your true self. But there is an important point there, because we were saying so at the top of the program, with respect to demonizing Iranians and everything. Your worldview is conditioned by all the information you've been browbeaten with, however subtly, pretty much ever since you were born. But wasn't Tom O'Neill, did you see him saying, he's the author, isn't he, was at those hearings? He was saying a few interesting things, wasn't he, Hesher, although not going nearly far enough.
Yeah. I've not read Chaos yet. I've watched some analyses and discussions about the book, and I hesitate to have too much of an opinion on him without reading his book. And I didn't disagree with a lot of the things that he said. I did notice he was being careful with current events, very careful with current events, and able to speak openly and say things that I've had people laugh at me before for saying, like, hey, Charlie Manson was involved in this, most likely, right? Like, I've been saying that for decades. And Charlie said it. Even Charlie said it. I'm mostly just reading things that Charlie's said, watching Charlie in interviews and in courtrooms and stuff, which is bewildering and befuddling. But that does explain quite a bit. And here we are, and now it's like common knowledge. And I feel like all these hearings, it's all kabuki theater, but it's not without a purpose. The purpose is to make people in the current political party or whichever political party, make their voters feel like their concerns are being addressed. Number one, sort of a steam valve for that. But most importantly, it puts a bow on the entire topic. It's like, this is the end of that conspiracy. Oh, we have outrage and we have questions, and this can't happen again. But why are we sitting here talking about the 40-year-old version of it, 50-year-old version of it, when there's a modern version of it that is literally like sitting on all of our shoulders, this big digital golem sitting on all of our shoulders, performing exactly what you just described, Basil, creating a world of psyops and a world of synthetic worldviews. Why is that not being discussed? Because there's pretty dang good science on that too, that could and should be common knowledge for people. But of course, no, they want us thinking about helter skelter. They want us thinking about little green men. They want us thinking about, what it was like this many years ago, and how we're so much better off now. Get out of here with all that.
Which is worse, guys? Knowing or suspecting, being able to prove for yourself that the government is lying to you, cheating from you, stealing you, even brainwashing you into trained assassin killers, all this crazy stuff that are revealed in all these things. How they've killed political leaders. They may have been involved in the assassination of JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, all the stuff with the Black Panthers, all sorts of weird stuff, right? Like, is it worse knowing or suspecting those things, or is it worse they come out and admit, yes, we did do that? And moving on now. Like, whoa, hold on. Wait, like, I want some actual damn closure. I want to see people like drawn in handcuffs somewhere. Like, can we like find the families of the victims and offer them some sort of reparation? I mean, like, we don't do anything. We're just like, yep, here we go. Yep, we did the thing. And yeah, okay, look, squirrel. What?
Yeah, makes me think Luke is correct. Chaos is the plan. That's really the only thing you're going to get out of skull plugging in the entire planet.
Well, I think it's alternate chaos and then reformation under increased authoritarianism.
Right.
Alternating, because you can't bring in the fascism, the authoritarianism, if there aren't periods of chaos that need correcting, that need straightening out, It's the Masonic phrase, isn't it? Ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. Well, we have to have chaos, and then we can bring in restrictions on civil liberties. We can restrict your freedom of speech, movement, whatever, So chaos, and then coagulate et solve, alchemical process, dissolve and reform, endlessly repeated until the point where you've completely crystallized it.
Yeah. Some call it build back better. Depends on what never mind.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And Gunther says it's understanding how they did this to us. that needs unraveling. And yes, and like you said, Ruckus, it needs to be made right. They dosed people with high doses of LSD without their knowledge. They made people insane. They did electroshock on people. They did sensory deprivation. They did all kinds of things that are considered torture to alter the human perception to see what they could do with it. And they ruined people's lives. I'm serious. Go watch The Minds of Men if you want a good example, a series of good examples of ruined lives. And where are the families of these people? Where are the apologies for these people? Where's the public breakdown of how it was done, why it was done, what would it be used for in the future? And I think one of the biggest things about putting the bow on this for the establishment, if you will, is that you don't need to worry about it anymore. This happened. People that were older than us and less worldly came up with it. Probably a bad idea. Sorry to those of you that lost your lives.
It's all over now.
Yep. And it's all fine now. We wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
Get out of here with that.
The same with COINTELPRO, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how many of the talking heads on the major networks are fully paid operatives of the so-called security services, but chances are it's, you know,
right?
2 out of 3 or something, you know.
If Mockingbird, you know, it was the same with Mockingbird. Yeah, it existed. Maybe not a great idea. Sorry about that. You know, we'll be better. Are you kidding me?
My bad.
Right? A lot of my bad.
If they were doing even half of these things to, like, say, hamsters in a cage, there would be outrage across the world, right? It's all nearly, it's pretty bad, but it's not nearly as bad as what's happening to the Palestinian prisoners.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Truth.
Oh, yeah, but those same tactics are being used to numb the minds of the rest of the world so that they don't get upset about it, you know, keep them confused about it, keep them arguing over sectarian lines, religious lines, political lines, regional lines. And, you know, and that's the thing, like now, I mean, someone might say it's hyperbolic to call it MK Ultra, but the way that we have identity politics packaged up, pre-packaged up, and mimetic, you know, systems pre-packaged for people to roll into their programming from the doom scroll, that's a huge problem. That is mind control. That is a way, way, way more advanced form of mind control.
Absolutely.
Than, you know, that old school type of torture, you know, electrodes on the brain, LSD slip to you. Like, I think we all know that, like, that stuff, I hate to say it, but interesting science as it may be to some, is not the kind of thing that creates this world that we have right now. The tools that are being used to enact those very same designs are mostly cybernetic now, and they're mostly gone wide to the general public. Then you have to ask yourself, this begs the question, what do the focused technologies look like? What do the directed technologies look like? Someone in the chat was pointing out this, you know, voice to skull technology has been around for a long time. Like, we could think back to, like, what, Weird Science or Real Genius or something like that, where they were using that in movies back in the 80s. Yep.
Well, Hesher, I think we tricked ourselves. It turns out that MK Ultra and the voice to God, or the God of voice technology, they figured out, hey, like, we can't do that. It's a little too obvious. We'll give them Facebook and Twitter instead. Tell me those aren't the exact same thing. They are.
They are.
The algorithm does very much tailor make an attack, an MK Ultra brainwashing whatever, directly targeted and focused to you. I mean, that's just for you, buddy. You got to see that all that's on your doom scroll today, and it made you pissed off because we made that happen for you. You're welcome.
Way more advanced. That's the point. That is so far advanced from what they're discussing on Capitol Hill. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the other thing is, of course, people have been so numbed to this kind of revelation. If these hearings had been 30 years ago, it would be front page news on the New York Times, and, you know, lots bigger coverage, more spectacular, much more outrage. You know, now it's just greeted with a shrug. You know what I mean?
It's just another YouTube video that you watch. You know, it's
exactly,
like,
oh yeah, CIA mind control. Yeah, so what? You know,
right? It's like, oh, the government's admitting MK Ultra. I don't, you know, I'm kind of nonplussed about that. Maybe if the government was admitting MK Ultra was real, while Donald Trump stood there with Jeffrey Epstein and a gray alien, it would get my attention. But
that's right.
We're not there.
Yeah. So, my goodness.
So, I have a question for you guys on this 250th Independence Day weekend. Is America still fundamentally a republic? I'll go to Ruckus first. Are we still fundamentally a republic, or what do you think?
A republic? Yeah, they can't change. They can't change that kind of thing. That's still the exact, operationally speaking, the way the government is run. Yes, we're still a constitutional republic. Whether or not we actually act that way and it's working out for us, no, I don't think so, unfortunately. I hate to say it, you know. We were just, I mentioned that I was a bicentennial baby. This is what freedom in America looks like to me, right? You know, I can go hop on my skateboard, you know what I mean? And I can break my own neck. I don't have to worry about some boot stomping thug to come break my neck for me. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's just the way it is. Everybody celebrates their freedom slightly different. America still is free, don't get me wrong. So I do believe this is still one of the greatest countries on earth as far as our ability to allegedly practice things like our First Amendment right, our Second Amendment right, my right to practice the religion I want. I can pray to God. I can own as many Bibles as I want, and we're not at the point where they're going to come bust down my door with a SWAT team and kill me for doing so. We're pretty close. I worry about they're going to do that for what I say on the microphone, which is the First Amendment, but we're working on preventing that with the Second Amendment, which they are working on trying to end forever. But yeah, I think we're still protected by that piece of paper as much as they hate it. And they hate it and they know it. That's why they try the hardest to just shred it every single day rather than protect it. Hesher.
Yeah. Basil, we were talking about, I forget who said it, the famous comment about needing to do an end run around the Constitution. I feel like, for my answer, that's kind of what we're seeing. I agree with Ruckus. It's still fundamentally a republic, but there's so many end runs happening around the Constitution that people are having a hard time finding the Constitution anymore underneath all the legalese and psyops and crap.
Yeah, the American Constitution is a great document. It really is. And you're very lucky to have it. I think, you know, the founding fathers were very principled individuals for the most part. They might have been Freemasons and Rosicrucians and all the rest of it, but they wanted the best for everybody, except perhaps the Native Americans, and that was a product of the time that they grew up in. I wish we had a similar constitution here in the United Kingdom. We don't, and we're not a republic. We are a monarchy, lest we forget it. We are still subjects of the crown, you know. Yeah, I mean, the Constitution should be ironclad, but there are endless attempts to subvert it, the latest of which, at the risk of sounding like a scratch record, is I think legislation is being introduced into Congress that will make it illegal to criticize Israel. I don't know if you saw that they attempted that last year with a bill that got thrown out, and now it's coming back again, you know. So obviously you've got the Zionist problem in the United States, and you've also got the money in politics problem, and the you know, the way that you know, this woman in Colorado, DeJette, who got unseated by the 29-year-old insurgent, you know, she'd been in Congress since the days of Bill Clinton, you know, 30 years in the same seat. This terrible stagnation, you know, politics is absolutely sclerotic in the United States. It's much harder, you know, it's much harder to lose if you're a sitting member of Congress than it is to win, you know. So that is very disappointing, and you need to reverse Citizens United and come back to being, or rather reinvigorating the democratic aspect of the republic, put it that way. There are still the checks and balances, the Supreme Court, bit of a lottery as to who gets to pick the justices, depends on how many retire or pass away during each presidency. And I'm not sure about the caliber of the individuals on it. I think there's a bit of identity politics picking going on there, isn't there? The Supreme Court, because that's obviously a crucial institution as well. And the Senate is pretty abysmal, in terms of its makeup, in terms of the caliber of the individuals. I mean, we have the same problem in the United Kingdom, which is that you've got a generation of politicians who are not only entirely self-serving, but don't actually have any fundamental guiding, philosophical, moral, or ethical principles. They couldn't say, I seek and support the best possible living conditions for everyone, because they don't. They tend to favor certain interest groups, people of the same background, faith, ideology as themselves, at the expense of others. But first and foremost, they simply favor themselves and whoever's giving them money. So, the problems politically and the way that then translates into policy and what happens on the ground are absolutely legion. I mean, record levels of homelessness, biggest prison population in the world, tremendous cost of living crisis at the moment. And this in spite of the fact that the country has theoretically been getting richer every year for the last 250 years. It strikes me, and I can only really tell from old movies and things, that there was a high watermark after the war in recent history. There may have been in the 19th or even late 18th century as well, but after the Armageddon of the Second World War, those born during or immediately after the war had a bloody good time of it. The generation that are now the aging rockers, the first boomers, if you like, and slightly pre-boomers, people born in the 1940s and early 1950s who grew up in the 50s, 60s, careers in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Although there were major problems like Vietnam and all the rest of it, nevertheless, nothing like as bad as today, and they enjoyed, for the most part, great sense of freedom. Housing was cheap, petrol was cheap, you could do stuff. Do you know what I mean?
The American dream was fully activated.
Live, what is it? Something life and the pursuit of happiness. What is it?
The pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness.
Life, liberty, and happiness. There you go. Well, it's increasingly difficult for people, isn't it?
Yeah. I watched my grandparents pursue it, achieve it, enjoy it, promise it to the next generation. And by the time they left this world, even what they had accumulated was, not what they had expected. It was enough to get them through their, final days and all that, but it just did not turn out. It wasn't meant to be maintained. I don't think it was.
No.
And I got it. You mentioned World War II there. I saw all this footage of, sorry about the audio seeping in earlier. I was trying to pull the clip up, but I was watching the, in many places now, we don't do fireworks anymore. We do drone shows. So it's cool to put drone pictures in the sky. And I was looking at some of the other countries that were doing 4th of July drone shows. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but Japan is there with a drone show showing, Trump's golden fist and, pictures of Donald Trump, like kind of glorifying Donald Trump. And I'm just like, didn't we drop 2 nuclear bombs on you? Like,
I saw that.
And you're going to celebrate someone who is, I could understand if they were like maybe celebrating someone who wasn't such a warmonger and currently responsible for dropping bombs on innocent people, women and children. But yeah, I found that, I don't know, it
Well, they
caused some
learned their
dissonance in
lesson the
me.
first 2 times, Hesher. They're like, we better celebrate or else, you know,
Yeah,
you know what they're gonna do.
celebrate with drones under threat. Yeah, you know, one last thing. This comment about the MK Ultra thing. One last thing I will say that Halcyon put in here: the media are the real criminals for their role in providing cover for everything.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And that goes back a long, long, long ways to before television, you know. But now I would add the media slash social media, because the social media essentially is the umbrella that all the tech bros are under, which just has the forgive the term, warp speed, cybernetic version of what the legacy media has been doing. But you're 100% correct, Halcyon. And I've said for many years now that the media, our mass media cartel here in the West, is they should not, you know, Anderson Cooper, you should not be wearing a suit. You should be wearing a military uniform, because of the sheer, almost overwhelming amount of military propaganda that is really at the base of so much of your reporting. I would argue that even the culture wars stuff falls into military operation, military intelligence. Okay, maybe that make you feel better if I say military intelligence. But it is a crime against Western humanity for those people at Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, BBC, CBC, et cetera, to LARP as though they are regular citizens like most of us. That should be illegal.
Yep. Yep.
They should be
On
shut
that
down.
subject, 3 books: The Complicit Lens by Robin Anderson, How to Sell a Genocide by Adam Johnson, and Don't Say Palestine by Asal Rad. All 3 deal with the way the media has run cover for the genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, that's military activity. Garnering public support for bombing non-combatants in foreign countries that are not threatening your country. Sorry, that's military operation. That's not newsing.
So much for sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, also we have let's see. This one I found a little bit interesting today. This was a headline over at well, actually it's across multiple outlets. Nearly half of Americans don't know what 4th of July is about. They don't know what they're actually celebrating. It's pretty interesting. The numbers on these polls are pretty crazy. So this think tank published its 4th of July national survey Thursday, saying in a poll of 2,253 U.S. adults conducted by Morning Consult late last month, it found civic ignorance about U.S. history and the system of government, with 46% of Americans not knowing what the country's 250th anniversary commemorates, while 53 correctly identified it as the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. And guess where the most confusion was? Nearly 2/3 of respondents aged roughly 18 to 26.
Surprise, surprise.
Gen Z, 61% did not know what America's 250th anniversary commemorates, and only 39 correctly linked it.
Are we still at a place?
It's laughable. It really is. You know, why do we bother? Why do we bother?
A 5th grader, and the 5th grader will get this right, or they've solved that problem now too?
Yeah. Are you smarter than a 5th grader, Gen Z? I don't know. We'll have to find a 5th grader. My fear is they might know even less.
The 5th graders are using ChatGPT now.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, so there's some more interesting numbers in that survey. I definitely recommend people check it out for a good laugh, I suppose. I don't know, or a groan or something. Oh my gosh. Okay. Did you guys see the GOP party parachute incident? I thought it was so just appropriate for this year. You see this yet, Basil?
No, I missed this.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Prepare for the glory of America landing at the event here. Here we go. Here he comes. Oh, boom. Into the beer tent he goes. Face plant into the beer garden.
I like that. Absolutely. That sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. I believe the gentleman is okay. We're glad to hear that. But boy, did he provide some memetics for the 250th.
But what about the beer? Did the beer survive?
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. That would be very sad and un-American if the beer did not survive. All right. Well, so yeah, we're still a republic fundamentally. And as far as what independence means amid all this globalization and multinational power structure building, all this imperialism, I don't know, you guys. I just don't know. I said on Boiler Room, you just can't have globalism. You can't have a great reset. You can't have a build back better. You can't have an agenda 2021 or 2030 and still have that fundamentally a republic aspect to the country. It just doesn't work. And we were given a great example of that in 2020, what global messaging looks like, what global messaging does to sovereign nations. All of a sudden, not so sovereign feeling anymore. We're doing the same thing China's doing. And why? Because science? Like, what did the people get a say in that? No. So what do you think, Basil, about a republic functioning in a globalized multinational world? Is it even possible?
And big question at this stage in the program. Just about, I believe in internationalism, which is, independent nation states representing their own people, cooperating with each other on the world stage. It's almost been completely forgotten as an idea, almost, internationalism. I mean, that's what the United Nations originally was set up to provide a forum for internationalism. But globalism, of course, is something else. It's the homogenization of laws as well as cultures. That's the thing. I hope that we continue to retain our national cultures, particularly here in Europe, because they're very distinct and very rich, and they've been built up over centuries. Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Austria, other countries, Eastern Europe, very strong national identities with music, food, art to go along with them. Being only 200, 250 years old, America doesn't have the same strength of culture, so to speak, but nevertheless there is one. Unfortunately, the version that's presented to the world these days seems to be sort of doom rap and violence. That's what we get offered, but there is nevertheless Leonard Bernstein and Aaron Copland and Broadway and various other things that America has given to the world. So we hope that national countries will survive and will be able to preserve their independence, and then they cooperate with the other countries on the international stage. But they, whoever they are, want, of course, to dissolve national boundaries and cultures and all that goes with it in this globalist soup. So you go from, and it is happening, unfortunately, you go from one country to another and you're greeted with the same multinational stores, you're greeted with the same information, the scenery changes, but the mind control doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruckus, what about you, man? We're going to wind it down here. So what are you thinking? Any final comments, or do you want to follow up on that? Do you think that we can somehow allow a multinational, globalized, imperialist loving system to exist and still have our country in another 50 years when we reach our 300th?
Well, this country is nothing but multiculturalism from its birth, right? It's just excluding the natives who were born here, which, yes, again, we may or may not have. Yeah, we did some terrible things too. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like, I myself was born around like people of all sorts of different colors, shapes, sizes, religious backgrounds, cultures, family histories. It's like there's very few things that are shared here, other than the fact that we share space, we share the air around us, we share a town, we're neighbors, we go to the same school, we work together, we go to the same church, we have this community, and I think that is something that ultimately is all that matters. It's not about the independent, all these what you're discussing here, like, oh, the fake stuff that they're doing. They're intentionally trying to rip the communities apart with this mass migration and the replacement stuff. It is not about what they think it is. You know what I mean? So that's a problem. So again, but if like, hey, a stranger moves in, hey, they come to the neighborhood and they're not like you, we welcomed them with, we were raised in the time where that was totally normal and happened frequently. We would have like the foreign exchange students come and go. Remember the foreign exchange students, guys?
Yeah, it was a big deal back in our day, right?
It's a little different when they take like 500,000 of them and drop them in your small town of 20,000. And it's like, here, deal with it, by the way. Yeah, very good. What, are you racist if you don't like that? Like, well, what are you doing? Like, that's like an invasive species. I hate to say it that way, but that's not good for the local ecosystem. You can't do it that way. If you want to slowly increment and adopt and grow, then that's totally fine. But the way they're doing it, I think, is to intentionally rupture it, break it all apart, get everybody divided. And that's where we fall. I mean, we have a saying out here in the United States of America: united we stand, divided we fall. There's a lot of truth to that statement. It's not just a platitude. There you go.
Yeah. But what's always struck me about visiting the United States is that there are many Americas, plural, completely different feel to the place in Florida, in the Northeast or the Southwest, and also such completely different societies as well. You've got still, large numbers of white Protestant Christians of various denominations, each of which have their own flavor and characteristic. And then you've got urban black populations who have almost nothing in common with those people, and then increasing numbers of Latino populations watching their own television channels in a different language. And so what you really have is a continent with 95% of the people speaking the same language, but that's pretty much all they've got in common. And that's been borne out by, by the triumph of Donald Trump, which was a sort of reassertion of the sort of broski culture, if you like, wasn't it? On the other hand, now you've got supporting Democratic Socialists of America, the completely different social strata. Girls with piercings and pink hair, I've got no objection to that at all. But just if you look at the people supporting DSA, they look vastly different from the sort of people that support Donald Trump in terms of how they dress and present themselves. And so, and there's an increasing groundswell of what you might call sort of alternative type people, as it were, coming up through the generations and displacing much more socially conservative baby boomers who are dying off, and that's going to be reflected in politics and society in the years to come.
Absolutely. And that makes me wonder about these third parties being set up. Are they being set up for exactly that, as the safety net to catch all those people as the old guard kind of cycles out? How much can we trust it? So it's going to be, I don't know. It's been an interesting life. It's been an interesting decade, been an interesting year, been an interesting episode. But
well, they're real quick to add on to the last part of what I was saying here and what you guys are mentioning here is that there's a lot of truth also in this idea. I guess best represented by the famous farewell speech from Ronald Reagan. But like, what will really will happily and quickly, without even a second thought, set aside all of their differences when faced with a common enemy. And so, like, the Ronald Reagan idea is that he was like, I sometimes think what would happen if the people around the world would set aside their differences, all the borders, all the fighting would end if there was an outside threat from aliens, right? We saw, like, people coming together for the 9/11, response, stuff like that. This concept that we see playing over and over again in history, in real life, and also in movies. And this is why they give us they want us fighting with each other. They have to create the bogeyman for us to, this is your common enemy, because they're trying to redirect and distract from the fact that whoever they are the real common enemy. Anyways, just wanted to point that out.
Well said, Ruckus. All right, we're going to wind it down. Basil, do you have anything going on this week? Anywhere you would like to point our viewers to keep up with you?
Yeah, I'm going to be on UK Column News twice next week, on Wednesday and Friday at 1 p.m. UK time. So that's 8 a.m. on the East Coast if you're up early. It's a great show, breakdown of international and national news. I've no doubt Patrick will be sending in some field reports. We hope to get him live as well. So I will be on UK Column News Wednesday and Friday, 8 a.m. East Coast, 1 p.m. London time.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for hanging with us today, Basil. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you.
And Ruckus, what about you, man? Anything you want to make our viewers aware of as we move past the 4th of July?
Jesus loves you. Anyways, that aside, I know what you meant. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on, so please make sure you're following us over at alternatecurrentradio.com. I myself have been making the rounds, as it were. Oh, there I disappeared. I didn't do it right. But that's okay. You get the idea. You know where the website is, right, folks? alternatecurrentradio.com. There it is. But once you head over there, you can find my Roundabout Ruckus program. I usually, quite frequently, because I do this once a week, I do make an appearance on Weaponized News with Sam Chaney. Shout out to Sam. But occasionally I break the mold and I show up on other programs. So there's one right here with me and Charlie Robinson. Shout out to Charlie. I made an appearance as a guest on his Macroaggressions podcast. And then at some point tomorrow or the following day, but tomorrow there is going to be a new premiere of another appearance by yours truly on the Out of This World with Jamie Hanshaw. So we'll be premiering that tomorrow. And then once that's all done, I'll put that up on the website as well. So that's what's going on. And then don't forget, we do music mixes on Saturday nights. I started a little bit of a series myself, a bicentennial baby mix to celebrate the celebration of the country and the fact that I was born in 1976, the bicentennial. So there's going to be 4 different tapes in that series. We've got the first one out, so I'll make that available somewhere for y'all on the website. But you can just go to the website, find all of that information in the menu. You'll also find links to follow me on my X account, which is AC_wordslinger. Okay. And yeah, it's kind of hard being an American right now with all the things that are going on, but I am still proud to be an American. Sort of. I'm trying. But I'm very happy to be an American. I can say that confidently. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, to be honest with you. So thanks for having me, Hesher. And may God bless all of you out there if you celebrate, if you know what I mean. Read everything, listen to everybody. Don't believe anything unless you can prove it for yourself using your own research. Ruckus out.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. Really appreciate it. And I mean, my gosh, I guess for me, I will point you towards Friday night's Boiler Room that we did, which you can find at Alternate Current Radio. It's called Founding Fathers Facepalm, a Boiler Room special. You can find that up at the website there. We've got the video embedded. We've got the audio embedded. We've got a really nice show post set up for you here. We've been working on our show posts and upgrading them. So go check it out. We had a massive, massive show. It featured myself, Ruckus, Mystical Pharaoh, Spore was there, Randy J, Hervore Morich, Cavi, Mark Anderson, Jay Dyer, Jamie Hanshaw, Charlie Robinson, Tim Henchliff, and Sam Chaney all made appearances on that episode, and we had a bit of fun with it. We played a bit of a round table game called Founding Fathers Facepalm. You can find that on my X at Hesher Media, or of course, you can go to the website, alternatecurrentradio.com. So as we close tonight's program, perhaps the central question remains unanswered. Are we witnessing merely another chapter in a long cycle of conflict, or are we living through the end of diplomacy as we once understood it? This week, millions gathered in mourning in Iran, while America arguably lacklusterly celebrated 250 years of independence with fireworks and patriotic flair. The contrast, to me, is striking. But both scenes remind us that history is never static. It is lived, contested, remembered, and too often rewritten in real time. Alphabet, I'm talking to you today. Mass media cartel, I'm talking to you. The founders of nations, like the architects of peace, understood that dialogue and restraint are not signs of weakness, but prerequisites for civilization itself. If those principles are abandoned in favor of permanent confrontation, managed crises, and endless escalation, then future generations may inherit institutions without wisdom, power, without accountability, and technology without humanity. So, as America reflects on its 2.5 centuries of triumphs, contradictions, and unfinished promises, perhaps the challenge before us is not simply preserving freedom, but preserving the capacity to speak, negotiate, disagree, and coexist without defaulting to destruction. Is this really too much to ask for in 2026? In a modernized, technological first world, is that really too much to ask to preserve the capability to speak, negotiate, disagree, and coexist without destroying each other? I thought we'd be a lot further along, quite frankly. Hey, a sincere thank you to Adam Clark, aka Ruckus, Basil Valentine, and to Patrick Henningsen for trusting me to guest host this week's program while reporting from abroad. And of course, thanks to all you around the world for tuning in, supporting independent media, keeping this conversation alive. Please like, share, subscribe, and support our work here at 21st Century Wire and Alternate Current Radio. Because independent voices matter now more than ever. It's really important. It's one of the reasons we go to great lengths to try to feature your comments, your questions, and everything that this wonderful audience puts up on the screen during the show. Now, we're going to go out to another tune by The Real Anthem. And I'll look forward to being with you folks again next week. And I'm sure Patrick, Basil, and Ruckus are feeling the same. I'm Bryan McClain, and this has been Sunday Wire. All the best.
together in the dark. Secret wars are waged. Quiet army sabotage. Bloody tension remains. Global faces of a crime. The sleight of hand betrays. Something slept inside their hearts as explosions rage. The system breaks as truth increases. The grip on us and the world order ceases. Behind the mask, it's falling to pieces. What comes next? Have they lost all reason? Paper empires catch a spark as vultures come to prey. Hollow kings are losing ground. Shadows of decay. Walls begin to show a crack as ancient echoes fade. Scales shall fall from blinded eyes.